ERC 1155 NFT that allows you to come in and lock up tokens under 3 different types of locks inside of that NFT. You can then turn around, sell that NFT on OpenSea, trade that NFT with your friends, view it in your favorite NFT viewer. It's all cross-compatible. And that is the main advantage here, is that because we're using something that's already an agreed upon standard, it's very easy to transfer, and it has a kind of universal adoption, if you will.
Okay, I found this on the web for it's very easy to...
Siri, I did not ask you to turn on. So, yeah. So when we get into, what the product actually is, it's just an ERC 1155 that contains ERC 20s. You deposit these ERC 20s into our smart vault, and the ERC 1155 acts as a sort of bearer bond to retrieve them. Let's say time lock. Time lock is the first of the 3 lock types, and it's the easiest one to explain everything with. So let's say you have 100 tokens and you want to lock them up, vest them for 2 weeks. So you come to me, come to Revest, and you say, okay, I want to lock these tokens, these 100 tokens for 2 weeks, and I want them in I want 5 NFTs. So I can give, 20 tokens to my buddy Al, 40 tokens to my buddy Will, and, keep the remaining ones for myself. So what we do is we go ahead and we mint you 5 FNFTs, each worth 20 tokens, and with a lock on top of them that will only unlock after 2 weeks. So once that 2 weeks is over, you bring us back the NFT, the ERC 1155, you burn it, and you receive back however many tokens you're entitled to. In the meantime, you can transfer it, do whatever you want with it. Now, that is the first type of lock, but it is not by far the most groundbreaking one. And this is where Revest gets this is where we're heading out of, well-charted territory. What I've just described, it's great. It has a lot of applications for, acquisitions in the space, where typical locks, you have stuff locked up investing. You can't sell those vested tokens. Well, with Revest, you can. But moving forward from that, we have locks that are actually kind of pushing the boundaries of what anyone has thought to do. This is where Blox is going to come in. So the first of these locks is the value lock. And the value lock is a lock that will only unlock when the price of an asset, typically the underlying asset, has exceeded a certain value. We joke a lot in Revest that, this is a kind of a diamond handcuffed system. So if you have 2 or 3 ETH and you don't want to unlock it, don't want to be able to sell it until ETH hits 10,000, then you can lock it up. Say, I don't want to be able to touch this until Ethereum is $10,000 a token, and congrats, you're good to go. You cannot sell that until Ethereum is worth 10,000 a piece. So value lock has a lot of uses in those niche applications. It also can be used as something of a future, and there's all sorts of little things you can do with it. But where it really shines is when you get into address locks. And address locks are where Blox comes in. I'll get to that in a second. What an address lock is it's a programmable lock. We have a standardized API, and anyone can come in and write their own lock. We actually did it for Blox. When Blox showed up, they needed to vest some tokens until either a period of time, or I believe it was a legal opinion had been reached. And if that legal opinion was reached, the tokens would be able to unvest prior to that time limit being met. Otherwise, they are vested for that entire time period. So we put together that lock. We pointed the Blox vesting toward it. The Blox that is stored in our smart vault is set to that lock, and it cannot unlock until the conditions on that lock are satisfied. Either a year has passed or a signal to unlock has been sent. So this heads into a really, really wide variety of different possible locks, because what I just described is scratching the surface. Another popular one we have is the combo lock, where you can lock up tokens for either a period of time or until a price has been reached. You can also do it as an AND lock. You could write an address lock. This is getting even more out there. That wouldn't unlock until man had set foot on the moon again. So there are an awful lot of possibilities for address locks. And when you start to expand out into the uses, you get stuff that goes a little bit beyond vesting. And I'll get into that. But let's first talk about our main entry vertical into the marketplace. Because as I've said, the Revest protocol isn't really designed to ultimately be just one vertical. It is designed to spread extremely horizontally and enter a very wide variety of markets. So our first vertical, when I say vertical, for those of you who had never heard the term, I hadn't until I got involved with all this. It just means your first target market. So our first vertical has been vesting, and what that means is, we see legacy token locking solutions, and they're quite common, stuff like Unicrypt, stuff like TrustSwap, or TeamSwap, or whatever it is, and they don't have a great deal of flexibility. If you've locked tokens in there, okay, those tokens are locked. And if you have a vesting system, and actually the most common vesting systems we see are roll your own vesting systems, dangerous, buggy. There's actually a ton of problems with writing your own vesting system. The biggest one being, if you do it wrong, you've lost tens of millions. But typically with this stuff, you can't sell the vested tokens. You can't sell the rights to them. And that's a problem because in traditional finance, you can have an acquisition of a project that has, the team unable to access some of their stock. You go through the legal process, you figure out how to do it. But with these legacy systems, those locked tokens are totally illiquid. You can't sell the NFT. You can't sell them in any way. And you certainly can't sell a wallet because a sold wallet is a major security risk. So that's where Revest has entered the market, is offering these highly advanced locks, offering this greater degree of flexibility for token vesting. And we have had a fairly good past 3 months, to be honest. We've locked down several large projects in our vesting system, yourselves, and another very large project called EcoFi, who we're happy to have in there, along with a few smaller folks. We've I don't even remember how many partnerships we've announced. We've got a whole bunch of stuff coming down the pipeline in the next few months to weeks. It's been a very exciting 2021. We launched around September. Oh, how can I forget the launch pads? We've set up partnerships with 2 different launch pads who are going to basically be allowing us to target projects directly at the source. And we've got some stuff coming down the pipeline along with raises. So that's kind of a separate thing, and I will try to stay on topic because whenever I talk about Revest, I do tend to just start talking about the more esoteric stuff that we are doing, because we've got a lot of interests. So upcoming in 2022, where we're headed with the project is, and I'm going to get to Blox in a second. I'm going to go over the more general stuff first. Right now, we're putting the finishing touches on an NFT locking and staking system. And that, we are fairly certain, is going to appeal to several of the partnerships that we've put together, several that are actually unannounced, to be straight. And that will allow us to lock NFTs, garden variety ones, and allow people to receive staking rewards for locking those NFTs. It's a white label product. We're excited to be working with several of our metaverse partners on setting that up and basically allowing people to lock a group of NFTs into a single NFT, transfer them. It has a ton of uses. That project should be out in the next few weeks. We're working on a smaller project that has some interesting implications in the ability to basically sell something and then have the funds unlock year after year after year. So you can take $500,000 worth of tokens, sell them, and then have $100,000 unlocked each year for the next 5 years. We've set up, we launched Trust recently, which basically allow you to set up an FNFT that can be deposited to multiple times over the years. So that one's really targeted at people who want to actually set up crypto to pass on to their kids. So you can set it up for, say, 18 years in the future, make deposits to it over time, and in 18 years it'll unlock and they can take all the value out of it. Let's see. I think the last one that I can really talk about at this point, because I mean, there are some projects that I just am not actually able to talk about yet, but we leave hints. Uh, the last one that I can talk about is that we're looking into the concept of staking as a service, and that would be kind of self-serve. Something that has really surprised me. People like our staking system. Uh, I never knew staking systems were so exciting. People are incredibly excited about what we've put together, and they just can't get enough of it. So we've been having people asking us, "Hey, can you make this into a product?" The answer is yes, and we're working on it. I can't give any definite details, but we're working on that. So I think now is a pretty good time to segue into talking about Blox, because and if any of the Blox guys want to jump in and direct the conversation, feel free. Otherwise, I'm just going to start waxing poetic about it.
Yeah, no, I would say, Rob, first of all, I hope that all of you can see why when we first talked to Rob and got off the phone with him, we were very excited. This is revolutionary, groundbreaking stuff. Some of it is a bit perfunctory, but that has been rethought by Rob and his team. And in our first conversation, and I hope this helps you segue, we were talking about, because we used Revest to lock up our pre-sale token holders, as Rob had mentioned, and we mentioned verified by Blox to Rob, and he said, "Look, geez, what is that?" And so we went into it, and Rob said, "Oh, wow. I mean, I think there's a bunch of different applications that we could look at, some out of the gate that are obvious and some that are less obvious." So why don't you start kind of describing the obvious ones that we have talked about already and that you're already looking at deploying, and then we can get into the last conversation that we had where you were brilliantly took this out to outside of FNFTs.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and just throw my heart into it. So, the first concept that I had when I was talking with, I believe this is Ghost I'm talking to.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
the
first
right.
concept I had when I was talking to y'all was, and this is actually what we are going to be moving forward with implementing into Revest, because I was telling y'all about the address locks, and I think I did forget something. They're reusable. They're designed to be fully, I don't know how to put it. They're written in a domain-specific language so that they will render on our front end, regardless of who wrote them. You can go out and write one right now, and then everybody else in the community can come around and reuse it. That means that they are, extremely flexible and extremely reusable. And honestly, I'm very excited to see what people are going to be putting together with them. However, there is a single drawback here, two drawbacks actually. And when I heard about Blox, I figured out how we could solve both of them. And the first drawback is probably the most obvious one, and that is that when we're talking about these address locks, that there's no way to tell who wrote one and if it's been approved by the Revest team. Sure, there is actually a list of address locks at our website, app.revest.finance. You can see it right there in the vesting system. However, not all address locks that we, the team, write will ultimately be there. And especially when we get community suggestions, you're going to want to know, one, who wrote this address lock, because we will be adding community stuff to this list over time. You're going to want to know who wrote it, and you're going to want to know, has it been approved? Something of an informal audit, I suppose, is the best way to describe the approval process that I see. And what I'm thinking that we can do here, actually, I should describe the second problem first. The second problem is metadata. So I told y'all how our front end can render the address locks and collect the inputs needed for them dynamically. It creates a dynamic form from the user. Well, what it's doing is it's talking to the address lock on the blockchain and getting a metadata file from the address lock, or a pointer to one at least. Currently, the metadata is stored on IPFS, and as many of you will know, there is a problem with IPFS, which is that it is not permanent. This is something that has to be permanent, this metadata file. So IPFS while, I'm happy to continue paying to keep those files pinned, it's not perfect. Blox, however, is permanent because the transactional data that it creates and stores on the blockchain when it's transferred as an ERC 777, well, first of all, it's permanent, so that solves the metadata problem. All we have to do is look at the lock and see if someone has sent an ERC 777 to it, and if it's the Blox ERC 777. If it is, check the data payload, and what do you know? There's the metadata right there, ready to use. So, problem one solved. Problem two, how do we see if this thing has been verified by the Revest team, ultimately the Revest DAO? Well, that's actually about as simple. We just check and see who sent the token. So this really kind of solved one of the bigger problems of address locks that I've been thinking of, which is how do you actually have that blue check mark? How do you say this is a legit address lock? It's been checked out. It will not fail. It's safe. It's secure. It's properly vetted. Blox is how you solve that. So this is something that we look forward to using. This verification method, it will be producing, I'd say, use at a fairly decent clip. It will never be extremely high throughput, but we are a small project right now, and our goal is to cover this ecosystem. So when we achieve that, we're going to drag y'all with us. And when we achieve that, and when y'all are working with us on this, that leads into my second idea. And this is actually something that's far bigger than just Revest. This actually exceeds even Blox, and I was telling Ghost about it the other day. Right now, if you go to Dex Tools and you look at, say, Revest, what you will see is you will see links to Unicrypt and links to TeamLock. And the thing about those, you'll also see stuff like, okay, this contract has the ability to pause. This contract can, has the ability to mint additional tokens. It might show you an audit. A lot of the time it doesn't, but that's neither here nor there. So what we see when we go to Dex Tools is we see basically like an informal registry of whether or not these contracts are valid, et cetera, et cetera. The glaring security issue in the Ethereum network, though, is, okay, first of all, there's no actual way to know that you're looking at the correct contract. You can't tell. There's no formal way to track, vested tokens. There's no formal way to track locked up liquidity tokens. There's no formal way to track, whether the contracts that you're connecting to are the real contracts. There's no formal way to track whether the contracts that you are even just working with have been audited. If they're the audited contracts, or maybe that team got an audit and then redeployed the code in a manner that they changed it. All of this stuff is not easily available. A lot of times you have to go looking for audits. There's no public way of really guaranteeing, yeah, this contract's been audited. Here's the proof. That's where Blox comes in. That's where Revest, that's where Blox, that's where a few of the other partners that we are working with can really start something big in the Ethereum ecosystem, because this ecosystem needs more standards. And this verification solution that Blox is offering, I think it is that standard. I think this is how we track, okay, this team, what we would do is we'd take an ERC 777 by Blox, and we could send it to an ERC 20 contract that's been deployed. Include in the metadata, here's the link to the audit, here's the link to the team lock on Revest, for instance. Here's the link to where the liquidity tokens are locked. We can prove all of this. It's all there. And what's more, if somebody goes and changes the contract using an upgradable contract, or even if somebody hijacks the front end, like happened to Badger DAO the other week, 120 million lost, by the way. If somebody goes and hijacks the front end, if this stuff's programmed into MetaMask, you're going to know that the contract has changed, and this is no longer the verified contract, verified by some central authority. That now this is a different contract, and you need to figure out what's gone wrong here. You might not want to click that approve button. So when I see Blox, I see a really impressive solution for the problem of security verification on Ethereum. And I'm honestly just incredibly excited to be working with y'all.
Well, to summarize for those of you following along at home, what we've just heard is the kind of thing that we've been hoping for, which is a partner who has the thorough knowledge of the blockchain, who understands what we have developed in Verified by Blox and how to create specific and unique hashes to be able to be used in additional verification processes for additional steps of verification. And as Rob just said, he's thinking about that in a way, how do you solve some of the big issues that simply exist within Ethereum? So he's covered for you that Revest with their the locks that they create can use additional verification with those locks to double check belts and suspenders, if you will, through using Blox's verification that these are in fact the valid contracts, valid FNFTs. And on a larger level across Ethereum, with everything from liquidity pools that are locked. Think of how much more secure, how much more dependable a Revest lock would be in a liquidity pool that was verified by Blox. Audits. Rob said to me the other day, right now people get audits and it's like a piece of paper that you wave around. But how do you know what happens to that contract as that contract can be dynamic? How do you then re-verify what's happened to that contract? And it is one of the issues that Rob just pointed out exists throughout the Ethereum network. And to me, it is absolutely thrilling to have another brilliant mind look at what we can do inside with our metadata verification process that is verified by Blox, and bring that out into multiple use cases. The first and the easiest ones are within the existing Revest products. The second ones that are even bigger, as Rob just mentioned, are out in the whole world of Ethereum. And what Rob said, and I want to highlight this, we were talking about it the other day, and I said, I hope that the community will understand that you guys are a young, growing company, and perhaps out of the gate, this isn't going to cause a ton of blocks buying by Revest, because you don't need that many blocks to be able to verify these contracts or these locks. But as they grow, as they become more ubiquitous, thus will our verification process become more ubiquitous. And as they outgrow themselves and some of their concepts and processes become bigger than their project itself, their ubiquity will match with our ubiquity of all of these concepts working together as a safer, more secure, more flexible way of verification and security. So I kind of wanted to synthesize everything that you had just said, Rob, and put it into terms that I'm hoping everyone here can understand. Now, yeah, I don't know what you want to do from here, whether you have some questions and or want to open it up, but I'll turn it over to you.
Well, first of all, fantastic summarization. I do tend to get a little bit technical at times, but I think you about covered it. I'd be happy to open up the floor to questions. Love talking to the community. Love to hear what y'all are interested in learning more about, and answer any questions I can about the partnership, about Revest, about how I see Blox being an integral part of the DeFi future.
Yeah, I mean, I had some questions that were basically listed out, but I think Rob really touched on all of them and articulated on everything very well. I did kind of watch the AMA that you just had, and it was a high balance of When Moon and some technical stuff of Revest. And I know some people got some kicks out of that in the AMA. but I was also reading some of the white papers and stuff like that, and you talked about the time locks, the value locks, the address locks, and all these different ways of kind of triggering these vaults for locking or unlocking. But I did see you were talking about kind of savings accounts and inheritance, trust, stuff like that. How does that work if that NFT is in somebody's wallet and they pass away? What would that look like, or what would that process be? Would it be like crypto, where it's just kind of like, if you have the seed phrase, you can get it, otherwise it's gone?
Unfortunately, yes. This
Okay.
is when we're talking about inheritances, that's always been one of the harder questions. So I guess I'm going to have to get a little technical here. There is a way to do that properly, and that involves actually just putting your seed phrase on the blockchain. But to do that properly, you need a ZK rollup. So there are ways to set it up so that Revest can actually lock the knowledge of your seed phrase to a series of things being met, such as, okay, let's say, oh, Jesus, this one is a really complicated idea, but let's say that you haven't actually done, you have an oracle, and the oracle can detect if your obituary has been published in the local paper. And this lock also requires 3 of your closest friends to have signed a transaction. Well, if you have something like that, and you have either a complex contract that uses Revest locks that can just withdraw from your wallet, which is doable, or you have us on a ZK rollup, which is, and I'm talking about privacy chains right now, that is something we're looking into. We have some people we're talking with about that concept. Then yes, that is doable. With the current Ethereum technology, don't think we're quite there.
So where my mind goes while listening to you and kind of the applications that you have in place, I really like the idea of the transferable FNFTs. So what this can do is it can kind of create a secondary marketplace. So just using our own situation as an example, there were some tokens for Blox that were locked up for a year. Well, if these are locked up into a transferable FNFT, potentially a second marketplace could open up to where maybe somebody would rather buy the rights to those released blocks rather than having the person wait the full year. The rights to access those in a year could be transferred to someone for a certain price. So you could buy at a discount, or buy, you could pay whoever had a right to that at a lower price, just because you are more willing to wait, or whatever market forces motivate that exchange. And then, of course, you would definitely want to make sure that contract is legitimate, and where Blox would be, if it was verified by Blox, it makes a secondary marketplace available. Is that right, Rob?
A secondary marketplace, definitely. You could definitely do a secondary marketplace just right now on OpenSea. As far as I'm aware, such a transaction is in fact currently possible. Can you correct me if the FNFTs for Blox are locked or transferable or not?
I mean, I believe that the way they've been set up, if somebody wanted to sell that FNFT that they have, all that they would have to do is transfer their FNFT to another party, and that party could then buy it. But right now, as that is not verified by Blox, there would be some trepidation, I would think, in that transaction. Whereas if you added a verified by Blox, you relieve and mitigate some of the trepidation, as you can then pre-sell something, as Calvin had just said, either for a discount or a, and what
Correct.
the expectations are of the project.
Yeah, you're basically taking
and you do
the
create
net present value
organically a secondary market. Now that's in the case, we had a very small pre-sale group, but if you take this out into a much bigger, I don't know, let's say Telegram had, when they did the billions that they did and raised, if they had locked those up in FNFTs, then there would be a huge secondary potential market that was created as those locks were being waited to be unlocked. So yes, I mean, I think Calvin has a phenomenal point, which is part of this and the flexibility of the lock as created by Revest. Once you can add additional verification so that you can be absolutely certain that what you're buying is in fact legitimate, because as we all know on this call here, one of the biggest problems that we have in crypto is scams. And anything that you can do to mitigate a scam is going to be nothing but positive. So, I think that's a great example.
I totally agree with
that Calvin gives that couples both the flexibility.
Hello?
I think we lost him as speaker.
Yeah, I think we lost him. I mean, I'm absolutely in agreement. That I haven't heard this idea of verified marketplaces very often, but if anyone in the Blox community is interested, I actually do have some Solidity code kicking around for a gasless marketplace that you might find interesting. And if you wanted to combine that with, say, verification for the NFTs being sold on that, well, that would get interesting very quickly.
I think a lot of this stuff is just so new and so fascinating that it's hard to listen to something and absorb all of it at once. But the opportunity like this is to be able to hear yourself and Calvin and Ghost talk about these types of things. Bits and pieces, I think, resonate with different people. One of the things that you had brought up is the as far as the locks, is there like a minimum amount of time or a maximum amount of time? And if you set a time, how can that be changed? Is that by the owner? Is it just like, I mean, the owner has the key to the lock, or is it once you set the clock, it's like, oh, that's wrong.
So if we're talking about default time locks, the minimum time is going to be the minimum block time. So that's actually something that comes from blockchain. In Ethereum, it's about 13 seconds typically, but that's going to be your minimum. Your maximum is unbounded. You could set it so that they won't unlock until the heat death of the universe. But I don't really know why you'd want to do that. To your second question, yes. In some cases, you could set it up so you could change it. That would not be a default time lock, though. You would have to set up a special address lock to handle that. Otherwise, they are, in fact, immutable. Once you've set a time lock, your time lock is set. It's not changing. Even the owner can't undo it.
Gotcha. And with the stuff with like the FNFTs, basically once it's been withdrawn from the FNFT to, say, the cash or however you want to view that, only the owner can exchange that, just like an NFT, right?
So yeah, basically, let's say that I create a bunch of FNFTs and I transfer you 10 of them. You have those 10 FNFTs. They are, as far as the blockchain is concerned, they're just ERC 1155s. No one can take them out of your wallet unless your wallet is compromised. And even then, actually, we've had cases where that's happened and they haven't taken the NFT because they don't know what it is and they don't realize it's worth money. But yeah, they're fully transferable. The only person who can exchange them is the person who holds the NFT. So it's kind of like when you go to the dry cleaner and you get a ticket. If you give that ticket to somebody else, well, they can go get your clothes.
Well, I just think that the applications, because right now the DeFi space is fairly limited. I think the imagination is a little bit limited. People use the DeFi space for kind of short-term loans or for lending or different things. I think the application is very, very limited in scope. But if we could do a verified by Blox FNFT marketplace, suddenly derivatives of every kind are now available. There are so many companies that are willing to sell their accounts receivable for a discount because of time and cash restraints and constraints. And there's just a whole world here. The majority of these systems are usually closed. So like the current, like New York Stock Exchange, where most of the stock that is traded there is just in-house, and it's traded back and forth, and it's very closely guarded. And now suddenly we have the ability with Revest to exchange in a decentralized manner all kinds of access to finance for it's essentially futures contracts and all kinds of things. I just think that amazing.
You're on my wavelength, man. I am glad to hear that. I have 2 contracts that I've not deployed, and I'm waiting to build out the front end. I'm waiting for the time to be right, because with a derivative system, you need a marketplace. Doesn't work otherwise. But one of them is covered options. So covered calls and covered puts. Works just like you'd expect. You take any 2 cryptos, normally Ethereum or dollars, and something like even SHIB. You can do the less than reputable tokens, and you toss whatever 2 assets you want into a covered call. You find somebody to buy it, you sell it, boom, derivatives, decentralized, totally easily doable. The other one that I really am just a huge fan of is, it's not quite an interest rate swap. That's something I know exists in centralized finance, and I have no clue how you'd implement that here. But as y'all know, there are such a thing as Aave tokens, A tokens, that will give you interest on stuff that you loan out. And we've set up is something that allows you to segregate the interest and the principal. And I want to get this out probably Q2. It literally gives you 2 FNFTs, one that is the rights to the principal on the token, and one that is the rights to the interest that it generates over the time period that it is locked. So you and I are absolutely speaking the same language here, that there are a massive amount of instruments that need to be constructed that just cannot exist in the normal centralized finance world, but can exist here.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, there are people on Wall Street that are essentially, their entire job is to figure out how to create tranches from financial instruments and break everything out and then repackage them and sell them as their own derivative. And this is a world that, like, crypto has not even broached at all. Like, this is definitely cutting edge in the financial world, and it just kind of takes DeFi and just brings it to a new level.
Thank you. That has always been our goal, and that's the great thing about what we've done, is we've set it up so that very obviously, I really love your idea of a marketplace. Like, if we could get Blox to verify our FNFTs and say they are indeed actual ones, that's going to be so huge.
Yeah, I think that combination will make a marketplace possible.
Jesus Christ. Okay. We need to sit down. I need to sit down with the devs and talk about this more, because I have marketplace code and I don't have anybody to develop it because I've got too many other things on my plate. If we want to make this happen, we can make this happen.
Yeah, I don't know, Rob, if you had met Calvin yet. Calvin is...
I don't think so.
So Calvin is one of Blox's founders, one of the 4 founders. Calvin, I'm not going to give his whole history because he'll be mad at me if I do, but he comes out of he comes out of probably the most impressive traditional Wall Street investment banking house, and he has made his career. He wrote what are the ETX product that is sold by one of our partners, Humble, and ETXs are basically ETFs for crypto. And he's done all of the algorithmic rebalancing for those ETXs. And he also is probably one of the most reputable, well-respected crypto traders out there globally. So you two haven't had an opportunity to speak because you've been slumming it with people like me. But yes, you and Calvin would have a very good time together. There's no question.
Calvin, we need to talk more.
Yeah, well, if we could create a marketplace and have all these pieces in place, man, I think that it could be a pretty kind of groundbreaking deliverable for the world as far as taking DeFi to the next level. So man, it's very interesting, some of the applications that could come out of this partnership.
Oh, I am absolutely on board. We've got two big DeFi Legos right here.
So Yacht, I'm gonna, before we spiral out of control, I'm gonna toss it back over to you and let you bring us back into line of your space's agenda.
Yeah, I would say right now 75 to 80% of the space is just probably looking at their phone or computer with a blank stare and just listening. Like it's just a lot to absorb, and it's very it's one of those things that I could hear Rob and Calvin's brains literally aligning to each other, and I was like, I'm not going to get any of this, but it's cool to see it for you guys to be excited about it and kind of meet this way and have the opportunity to kind of trade some backstories is really cool to hear. But I think at the end, before the end of this, I think if we can do like a 15, 20, maybe 30-second rundown of like Revest, kind of not dumbed down, but just the layman's terms, I think that would probably help some of the community. I think a lot of people are just kind of hearing some things, understanding some basics of crypto, but not really understanding what the kind of end game of all this is. But
okay.
we do have some questions. If you want to jump into that first, we can get into questions after.
I'm gonna see what I can do here.
Okay.
So Revest allows you to lock any token, any asset into an NFT, which makes it the locked asset still transferable. Locking assets is the basis on which nearly all financial instruments in traditional finance are based. You can create any type of lock you want using Revest. You can create any financial instrument you want using Revest. We are working with Blox to verify those locks, and we want to use that for a lot more verification than just us.
I think that's perfect. And I think if you just kind of understand, like I said, I read through the white paper, I read through your kind of one page. I think reading just the bullets, you get a good understanding, and then once you read through the actual breakdown of it, you got to kind of go sentence by sentence and understand exactly what you're saying. But I think that was perfect.
Professor write that thing, so it's a little dense.
It's one of those, like, if you aren't savvy with a lot of the stuff, you can scan through it and understand what's happening. I think you actually get caught more in like your own mind by overanalyzing each word. I think the main points are all there, though. But I appreciate you breaking that down.
I mean, I think, if I can jump in and help a bit, so for those of you who can't tell, Rob's the CEO and founder. He's also the lead developer. And if you look at their code, it's very elegantly written code. So I've looked at a lot of code, but it's very elegantly written code. It's very impressive. So he can be a bit technical, but he can also break it down and boil it down into terms. But if you're gonna look at it from a layman's point of view, it's really not that complex what Revest is, right? They've looked at a new marketplace, which is crypto, and there is a need in crypto for some traditional financial products. And there's a lot of products in traditional finance. If you look at stock of publicly traded companies, there are lockup periods and restriction periods that are put onto when certain people can and can't sell stocks. Revest is simply applying what is fundamental traditional lockup periods into the new era of decentralized blockchain. So to keep it simply, you can lock up tokens that you want to lock up. You can do it by time, you can do it by value increase, or you can do it by event, which Rob called addresses. So what's an event? If this, then that kind of thing. And what Rob is looking at is how to add an additional layer of security to all of that by adding verified by Blox. I think that's about as easy as we can boil it down. But I'm going to give the folks on this call a lot of credit, because although some of you might be staring at your phones, I've spent enough time in Discord with a lot of you to know that a lot of you are very, very savvy and have a very thorough working knowledge of blockchain, crypto, and technology. So I'm excited to see questions that come from you all, and I'll encourage you to raise your hand to Yacht and ask questions of Rob, because he'll answer anything that you ask.
Yeah, we actually have 3 people up ready to ask questions, so we'll just go through them. We got Death Notary, the principal, and then Dave. So go ahead, take it away.
I was just curious on the address lock or the value lock, anything like that. You had mentioned when a man sets foot on the moon. So let's just say I do that. I put the lock on when man sets foot on the moon again. It releases it to a benefactor. Now I pass away and man never sets foot on the moon. Do I have to do like an if this, then that, like man steps foot on the moon, or within 20 years, or it releases, or, and then what if I change my mind completely and say I want it out in 3 years instead of 10 years? Is there a way to unwind that, and what does that take?
That depends on how you write the lock. So if you want it to be, it's all code. So if you want it to be so that if man sets foot on the moon within 20 years, unlock, otherwise, else, unlock after 30 years, then you could write it that way. If you wanted it to be, if man sets foot on the moon, then unlock, you could do that. And if man never sets foot on the moon, it would not unlock. And if you wanted it to be so that you could change it after the fact, well, you could also write it that way so that you would have the ability to go back and change it. It's all up to you. It's all in your control.
So we would just come to Revest. Go ahead, Ghost.
If I can put it in a real life example of what we did at Blox. So as all of you know who are familiar with Blox, we're the first Wyoming DAO, decentralized autonomous organization. And we raised a very small amount of pre-sale money for very specific things, which all of you in the community know because we've transparently talked about it. And all those pre-sale folks are locked up for 1 year. But we said to Rob, hey, what if we get an opinion from an attorney, or Hester Pierce, one of the 6 commissioners of the SEC, what if her Safe Harbor 2.0 proposal gets adopted and we hit what would be considered pure decentralization? Could our lock for our pre-sale folks be exercised earlier than 1 year based on an event such as confirmed decentralization? And Rob said, sure, I'll write it that way. And that's the way it was written.
So we would go to Revest with whatever we want, however we form it. Revest will write it, and we basically sign it, and that's that.
You could have us write it, or you could have someone else write it, and then bring the written one to us. And if it checks out, we sign it with Blox. Otherwise, you don't need it signed, and you can deploy it, and people who see it on their own and want to reuse it will be more suspicious because it's not verified. But
But
they
you,
can still use it.
but you just have to be very careful because it has to be written prior to deployment, because the blockchain will not forgive you or let you change things unless you have writable permissions built in or something, because once you've set it in stone, it's in there. So you'd have to really pre-plan it and think things through in advance.
Okay, thank you guys.
Of course.
Death Notary, what do you got?
Rob, real quick, you spoke about a concept, and I'm just curious how it applies to Revest and the locks. It had me very intrigued. I'll use like shares, for example, because it's more familiar with most of the group. So if you hired somebody and you're in a contract, let's say for 500,000 shares, right? And things aren't working out, and that person wants to get out, you want them out, they can take a loss on their shares, and if the company finds another person, they can get the shares at a discount. Do you recall that? I'm just kind of curious the concept of that and how it would apply to Revest.
Could you repeat the question? I didn't quite understand it.
Like, you were talking about a concept on that where in one of your videos, if things weren't working out between people and there was like, let's say they had 500,000 shares. I don't remember exactly what you used. They can go their separate way, but they could take a loss on the shares or a portion, for example. And then if the company found somebody new, they can get the shares at a discount instead of the full price if they had to
Yes.
invest in the company. So I was curious if you could explain more on that concept and how it applies to Revest.
That concept is fairly straightforward. The basic idea there is that because the shares are locked, the tokens, and they are no longer believing in the project, this hypothetical investor, they can instead turn around and find someone on the secondary, and they can say to them, "Hey, I will sell you these Shiba tokens at a rate of 75 cents on the dollar, and you think you can fix this project. Okay, you want to buy them because you're buying them below market. I want to sell them because I just want to get away." And ultimately, it ends up benefiting the team and the two parties involved, because now the team has somebody involved who actually cares about the project, which is incredibly important. It's always very important to have people who actually care. And the person who wanted to get out, they're now out. And the person who wanted to get in, well, they've gotten in at a cheaper price, and now they can put in the effort they wanted to put in to push the project back up the hill.
To put it in traditional finance terms, you're probably familiar with warrants. And if you have a warrant, you have the right to buy a stock as a warrant holder at a price. And whether your warrants are cashless or cash in, you may want to sell your warrants to someone else.
Hello.
Because maybe...
Hi.
Hello? Okay, somebody needs to be muted. But you might want to sell your warrants to someone else. And it's the same concept as that. Or it's the same concept as if you have restricted stock and you can't sell your stock until a certain date. But you have, for whatever reason, a need to monetize your stock before you're able to sell it. You can simply sell the rights to your stock to someone else and agreed on price. And it's basically the same as that in traditional finance.
Awesome. I just thought that was really intriguing with the crypto side on tokens and how it would work, but that definitely clarifies that.
It'll definitely lead to a much healthier venture capital ecosystem in the crypto space. Having done a raise, I can say it is not a terribly healthy one right now.
So we got some people are coming up pretty quick here. So we got Edward up next, and then Crystal or X Crystal. Edward, go ahead.
All right, I don't know if this is a dumb question, but this is for Revest. So you have a token like Xenu or like Shiba, and you know how there's trillion, right? So if they wanted to lock up, and the condition being like, once it hits 25 cents, another 100 billion is released or whatever, that's something that's plausible through you?
Absolutely.
So that would instantly make the value of these cryptocurrencies should theoretically like skyrocket.
How so?
Because you're taking away the liquidity until a condition is met.
Yeah, it would actually. If you as a team did that, and yes, absolutely, that will increase your value, in my opinion. It's a KPI system.
It's a great question, right? Because you just came up with another use case for a lock, which is possibly in the not too distant future, maybe using Revest locks is a way. You know how now what we do in crypto is we publish emission schedules, and we stick to those if we want to, but we don't have to. We can change those. Hey, I'm going to put 400 million tokens out for airdrops, and I'm planning on doing this many in year 1, this many in year 2, this many in year 3. But they're not really locked. You're not committed to it. So it might be a very interesting part of projects' launches in the future. If their emission schedules were locked, would that add some value to the overall token economics and tokenomics based on you basically being locked in to your emission schedule? Because now it's something that everyone can count on. Very interesting. Good question.
Do you think the potential with that is kind of like the self-fulfilling prophecy of everybody knowing when that locks and it dumping?
It depends on the condition, I would say. The right way to design this, and we actually played around a ton with the concept of KPI-based vesting for our own raise. Ultimately, we decided to go to the strict time one. Time-based vesting, I honestly, if I could go back in time, I'd do KPI. Because the interesting thing about KPI is, okay, you have the first vesting condition unlocks early if the value is at a certain market cap. But now you've set it up so that the second vesting condition, say like you have an unlock at 100 million, you have the second KPI, the second vesting term, can actually unlock, 3 months early or 6 months early if after 3 months the market cap is above 200 million. So if you make these things staged properly, then you can actually create a system of incentives where, okay, I just got an unlock very early, like a week early, and it was supposed to be 6 months, and I got it within a week because we hit 100 million. Now I can sell my tokens, and that'll mean that I don't get my second vesting unlock, which is set for a year. But if it hits 200 million after 3 months, then I get that one early too. So I'm incentivized to hold on to the tokens in that case.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah. I think it's interesting because, that was kind of like the second aha moment, just from the spaces of just the collaboration of just talking and saying things where these use cases or like a cross collaboration comes about. And that's one of the really the things I like about these spaces. Because obviously with Twitter, you can kind of go back and forth with messaging, but just being able to kind of ramble and rant a little bit and some key words buzz in and gives people some ideas. So hearing some of the stuff with use cases and like next steps possibly is really cool to hear.
That's fantastic.
Yep. Next up, we got, I'm guessing it's Crystal Lens. So I'm just going to go with the X Crystal.
Yes, Crystal Lens. Thank you.
Perfect. Yep.
I apologize if this was talked about more earlier because I missed the part, but my question is, can you give some specific scenarios that verified by Blox will be used to make Revest more secure? So I heard one where you might have verified by Blox contract that's used as an address lock. What are there others?
We could also apply them to our output receiver systems is the other thing that I've got off the top of my head. I'm sure more will emerge as we work together closer. These things, they frequently do follow that sort of a pattern. But right now, the first two, I think, the two most obvious to me, at least, are the verification of these systems. And that's not a trivial thing. When we're talking about these address locks, we're talking about locks that currently are protecting about $50 million. I'm not kidding either. These two address locks, they actually have the majority of our funds locked behind them. The combo lock and the admin time lock that's protecting Blox. When we move into stuff with what I call an output receiver, which is a horribly technical term, and I wish I could come up with a better way to describe it. What that is that allows us to set up these more complex financial instruments that Ghost was talking about on top of Revest. Those can also be verified by Blox. And having the ability to verify those, having the ability to verify the address locks, that prevents hacks that, when those things happen, they cause hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. And I've seen it. It's really ugly.
Yeah, so it's basically a form of code signing at this point, where
yes,
you're essentially signing the code to say, okay, we validated this and we know it's legitimate.
Yes, exactly. And I see that becoming kind of more of a standard in the crypto space. To me, that is something that's sorely missing, and I honestly really think that Blox needs to be getting in touch with consensus.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We got Dave, JDM, T-Mac, and then we'll come back to Death Notary. Dave, what's up?
Hello?
Dave, you there? We'll come back to him. JDM, you there?
Yep, here.
Go for it.
Thanks for putting this on. Appreciate it. I just had a couple questions and wanted to circle back on the resale conversation. So in traditional finance, when there's lack of liquidity, you would just plug these things into like a Black-Scholes model and determine some sort of valuation. Is there going to be a tool to help people determine resale value of these FNFTs? And then also, is there going to be a marketplace where kind of that all ties together, where people can go and see, things that are on sale or, valued at a discount and have the ability to purchase outside of something like OpenSea?
So the answer to both those questions is yes. Though actually the first one is I haven't built one. If it's doable, then yes, I'm definitely interested in learning more about this. I don't come from finance myself, so I have not heard of the Black-Scholes model, you called it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. It's how you would value, like discount the value of warrants or something that has like a lock.
This is wonderful. I'll have to talk to my CFO about this.
I'll help you out here a little bit since I used to play an investment banker on TV. And Calvin, don't disappear on me. I'm going to tell everybody that you work for Goldman Sachs. So there, it's out. Yes, what you're asking is it would be a absolute like-minded Black-Scholes model. And what we've discussed on this call thus far is that we've talked about the potential of creating a secondary, if you will, almost derivative market based on the abilities that you get by being able to create secondary market products through a lockup. So it's 100% like the traditional finance model. It's just never been applied to crypto before. And it couldn't be because what we're talking about on this call hasn't been invented yet in crypto until now.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. I mean,
Okay.
I'd be interested in seeing how easy it would be to apply such a thing. And definitely, if we're working with Blox on this potential verified marketplace, then absolutely, that would be really exciting.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple, like plug and play logic, Rob. You can definitely do it.
It's easy to retrieve those values from our system. So yeah, that should be able to be put into some sort of marketplace. 100%.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate it. I'm an investor. I don't plan on selling, so I'm pulling for you.
Oh, hell yes. I appreciate it.
Thanks for bringing that up, JDM.
Got it.
T-Mac, what's up, man?
Hey, y'all. How you doing?
Doing good. Happy New Year.
Good. Happy New Year. All right. This is fascinating, to say the least. Question: do you see with the NFTs itself, with the locks, individuals locking up and basically making NFT contracts with their own crypto, personal crypto, and putting it out there on the market for people to purchase with the stipulations that they pay them a certain amount of interest in return on the crypto that they decide to lock up. Like if, for instance, if I had 1 million tokens of SHIB, well, let me say 1 billion tokens of SHIB out there, and someone wanted to purchase, but they had to maybe in return give me 1.5 6 months later for buying it. Is that possible?
You have
With that,
touched
can
on one of the
you
more. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. And I was going to ask about, do you see NFTs as the future? Basically, I'm in real estate as well as contract law, as real estate contracts, corporation contracts, the NFTs, just making different type of business deals with the NFT contracts.
Yes. So to answer that second question, absolutely. My father's actually in real estate law himself. So I come from a family surrounded by attorneys. And based on what I know about that industry, I absolutely think that crypto has a huge role to play. I think NFTs have a huge role to play. I think FNFTs, and a concept that's even weirder that a few of my buddies and I bandied around called LNFTs, legal NFTs, those are going to have very interesting roles in the future. Especially when you're talking about complex contract execution. I foresee a future where firms are almost always going to have at least one dev of some type, even if that dev is also a lawyer on staff. So to answer that question, 100% without a doubt. To get back to the loans question, when we're talking about loans, if you just want to borrow SHIB, there are probably some better ways to do it. However, and this is where I'm going to catch myself? I can't remember the term. Anyways, this is where I'm going to kind of go off on a bit of a tangent, because we have bandied around the idea in Revest, and this is something that is not in the near future that we would do, but that could very easily be done by somebody with our technology. That is the concept of loan liquidations. And this is getting into a kind of a weirder space, but it's very doable. What you would do is you would have somebody say, put up collateral. Let's say that I have a bunch of SHIB, and you want to, actually, let's say you have a bunch of SHIB and I want to borrow your SHIB. Okay, so I put up some collateral that's equivalent to a certain fraction of the amount of SHIB that I want to borrow from you. And I place that collateral into an FNFT. You give me the SHIB, and I give you the FNFT that contains my collateral. Now, the lock on the FNFT is locked it's linked to the health of my loan. If the value of my collateral falls below a certain threshold, you can liquidate the loan. Where it gets interesting is that if you know me, and you know that I'm good for the money, and this is just a temporary setback, we've got a prior working relationship, you can actually treat that loan differently. So you can choose to not liquidate it. When you're talking about something like Aave or any of the other existing lending protocols, liquidations are automatic. It's not peer-to-peer. It's not, somebody owns the rights to your debt, and maybe they know you, and maybe they understand that you are good for the money. There's no such thing as credit currently. But when you're talking about FNFTs and loans, well, congratulations. You've just reinvented the credit system in a way that can actually work on the blockchain.
Fascinating. When you was talking about it, it was going through my head so much about the way loans can be done in the future with NFTs.
It's going to be
crypto.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy, man.
We've had some really good questions, guys. Keep bringing them. We still got some people waiting on. So if you ask your question, I am going to filter you through just to make sure we can keep the line moving. But level 2, what's up, man?
Hey, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Blox. So thanks, Ghost. Thanks, Calvin. Yeah, thank you for hosting. Revest, thanks for coming on and engaging with the community. Super sharp, a lot of cool ideas, lots of super innovative stuff. Great partner. So my question is, we kind of talked about those lockup periods and what the different Revest protocols can do. So lately in DeFi, right, DeFi went through kind of a bear slump. It's coming back right now. Mainly some of the leading things, though, we've got DeFi protocols like Curve, and then Wi-Fi copies Curve, right? So Curve right now is using their fees generated from their protocol, and they're buying back mass tokens, right? Because those tokens were inflationary, they were rewards. Now they're buying back so many, it's becoming deflationary, price go up. So I really like the idea of those lockup protocols that you can use your protocol for. Would it be possible for the Blox team and the Revest team to like sit down, do a screen share and record it and go through a use case and show like an actual demo of using your protocol, taking something like 100 blocks and then essentially burning it or just locking it up forever and just kind of show some of those use cases and just get something that's really tangible and something super visual so that it's an easy link or a video or something that you can share to potential people to kind of help them get their heads wrapped around what some of these products can do.
Only if Ghost narrates it.
Yeah, because my voice is so pleasurable.
I think we absolutely could look into doing something like that together. I'm all about videos. We've published a few before, and I think that would be fantastic. Yeah.
I was hoping that level 2 would show up, so I'm glad that you did, and it's a super interesting idea, and it's something that we will definitely talk through together through our partnership. I thank you for the question.
I know, Rob, you got a new camera and microphone, so you're ready to go with that type of stuff, right?
Oh, I am absolutely ready to go with that. I've just been sitting here staring at them wistfully this entire time.
Is all set up, ready to go, and just.
Yeah. I mean, hey, on the bright side, it is technically an expense.
This is true. That's true.
But I'm a little sad I get to use them. I'm sure I'll have to host an AMA again soon. It's terrible.
Yeah, the Twitter Spaces hasn't evolved to the camera yet. I think it's probably a safety precaution at this point. I know a lot of people are driving and doing this stuff. So I know Death Notary said he wanted to give everybody else a chance to speak, and I think Puppies just came up, and then let's go Puppies, and then Death Notary, and then we can kind of if there's nobody else, we can kind of see what's left. Hey, Puppies, you there? Puppies Investing Inc. All right, we'll come back to him. Death Notary, you got another one?
Yeah, it could be for both, but mostly for Blox, Calvin, and Ghost. How would Blox utility benefit a startup incubator or accelerator some people use? I'm speaking to one right now in Sandy, which Calvin might be aware of. So they're definitely interested on the Humble side, but I really wanted to get more on the Blox side.
So, Calvin, are you still with us?
Yeah, I gotta hop off in like 4 minutes though. So you're wondering how Blox can work with an incubator?
Yes, or just some ideas to help me.
Well, I think a couple of the things that are really intriguing that Adam and Jeff have been working on, they've actually been working on kind of an interface where blocks can be used sort of out of the box. They're trying to create like a front end web page where people can go, and because we've got the modules ready to go, but the modules do take a little bit of coding prowess. You have to be able to plug those modules in and use them. In Adam's terms, you kind of use it as a front end developer. You just add the module, and then the functionality is there. But for people that are a little bit less savvy, but still want to be able to verify different things or create NFTs or whatnot, they're wanting to create kind of a layman website where people can do exactly that on the front side. And I think that would be very approachable for the majority of people that are wondering how to get involved. And then if they get a little bit of that under their feet, then obviously we'd be there to help them integrate in a more in a deeper level after that. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah, as far as setting up, but like the utility of blocks, like what would be a benefit of the token for an incubator? Does that make sense? Or would it be more just the contracting side and payment transactions?
I mean, look, I think if those of you who are involved in the Blox DAO, you know that we have a proposal in front of us from an incubator out of Latin America called Labs. They've come to us with 5 different MOUs that have been signed from a variety of significant potential partnerships in Latin America, including government, including exchanges, and green, environmental initiatives. One of the things about Blox that in an incubator is that it is a very flexible token from a smart contract point of view. We've built what we've built, but it is basically like a lump of clay sitting on a table. We have the ability to address different utility and use cases that come up and be able to customize our smart contract to be able to solve use cases that are brought forth to us. In the case of Labs, for example, each use case, we will be working from a development point of view with each MOU in what their objective is and sculpting our smart contract to be able to fall in line from a capability point of view, technically, with what they're trying to achieve. So it's kind of nice and sort of interesting that what we have is almost an open, very flexible smart contract that we can add to consistently based on the ERC 777 standard to be able to modify our smart contract to be able to be used in different use cases through a development effort that can specifically be developed to that use case. So from an incubator point of view, that's how I would answer that. What Calvin just touched on, and spoiler alert, and for those of you that don't want to, hear the spoiler, walk away from your phone right now. We are working on something called the Blox registry, and we're working on it. And the minute we have it to a point that we feel it's something that can be put out publicly, we will publish it. And the registry, as Calvin was pointing to, is something that kind of takes the traditional technical lift out of a lot of what you're doing from a developmental point of view and put it into a packaged registry that involves EVMs, Ethereum virtual machines. And what we're trying to do in our registry is couple it with using and utilizing EVMs almost on a pedestrian level so that anyone can utilize the Blox registry for development. And that is coming to a theater near you very, very soon.
I have to hop off here, but yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to where I was trying to go with the response there. But as far as an incubator goes, we don't want to be in a position where we want to fund a lot of projects, but we do want to support them, and giving them an easy foot in on how to use and how to implement Blox and how to improve their business. That's what we're all about. So
Correct. I totally agree with that. So just kind of pitching the idea to them on getting in. So that really helps a lot.
Well, Calvin, I know you're a couple minutes over. I appreciate you coming in. We'll
yeah,
catch you later.
awesome.
Been a pleasure meeting you, Calvin. I look
Yeah.
forward to discussing things further. Sounds like
Absolutely.
we've got a whole lot to go over.
A lot of work to do.
It's always good.
Always a lot of work to do. That's the startup life.
So yeah, do we have anyone else with questions that are outstanding?
Yeah, we got 3 more people that are on right now. Rob, you got 10 more minutes?
I got 10 more minutes.
Okay. Well, we got 3 more questions right now.
We need.
All right. Well, let's go with, let's see. Puppies Investing Inc. came back up. You there?
Can you hear me this time? I'm a little bit better service there.
Yep, we can hear you.
I just had a quick question there. I'm not sure if maybe I'm just too new at some of the stuff and it might be out there, but I know we mentioned a couple times about a marketplace and how some of these special FNTFs to transfer them over and whatnot. Wouldn't it be a little bit easier too without going through a full marketplace, just with a website or D-app kind of thing where you just connect 2 wallets together and there's an agreement in between? So, because that's the main thing is trust, right? Like, you're not going to just send someone something that's worth a lot of money and then hope they send you money back. But I don't know if there's something out there yet where you can just connect 2 wallets, put the 2 things up, and then trade kind of thing, right?
There actually is.
Oh, okay. So that's just me that doesn't know.
Oh, no. Not a lot of people know. It's built by Owen, the guy who created OXMons. He is an absolutely fantastic developer and has put together something he calls pseudoswap.xyz. It's a good little site. It does exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, if you're interested, definitely check it out.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. Yeah. Just lack of knowledge on that one.
It is a good question. It is a question worth asking.
Yeah, I think that actually happens a lot, where people think that it's not a poignant question and it comes up, and the answer is actually the opposite. It's always good to hear questions, because a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You need to ask those questions, because like this is one of those pieces of infrastructure that exists, but he doesn't market it, and the only people who know about it are the people who know him.
I agree.
It's honestly one of the biggest things missing in crypto is, that strong ability to get stuff out there.
So I think we just lost some speakers. Only one was up, and I think Paul beat Bio. I don't know if they got bumped or what, but if you guys still wanted to speak, you guys got bumped by Twitter, not me. I would say leave the room and come back in, and we'll try and bring you back up.
In the dead space, I just want to comment that, well, first of all, Rob, thank you. Thank you for, thank you for realizing and understanding the opportunity that additional verification offers across the blockchain, not only to your project and your mission, but to the entire Ethereum network. It's, for all of you in the Blox DAO, we have a lot of partnerships. One of the reasons that I've been so excited about this partnership is this is our first completely 100% crypto partnership, right? We have other partnerships with publicly traded companies, that have a very significant blockchain backbone in Humble. So appreciative of that partnership. We have other partnerships in the government contracting sector that have a very well-rounded blockchain background. But Revest, I'll never know how you say it, is
Revest. I use them
Revest,
interchangeably.
yeah, me too. Is our first really 100% crypto partnership, and it was just really ratifying for me that a project with their own token, which Revest has, that crypto-centric of a project would realize the use, utility, and advantage of our token, and that's been more heartwarming than I can possibly explain. I hope that all of you on the call are as excited as I am that we have this partner working with us, and we have the brain power of this partner thinking about not just how to use our token for their project, but beyond their project as well. And that's been super exciting for me. And honestly, I'm incredibly excited about every one of the partnerships that we have in the DAO. But I'm very specifically excited in this partnership in that they are 100%, 100% a crypto-centric project, and that they realize the utility of our token and did from the very first moment we spoke. So, I don't want to monopolize, but as people logged out and needed to log in with potential additional questions, I just wanted to say, Yacht, I don't know how many people we have that showed up for this call.
I think we're in between 300 and 350, and I think we're down to about 231 right now. And I know a lot of people wanted to come in, but since it was being recorded, I think they were kind of like, "I'll catch it later."
Sure.
And with that, Twitter had some issues with recording, so I actually had level 2 pop on the recording probably about 10 minutes in. So I'll let everybody know that we missed probably the first 10 minutes. But I think Rob really covered a lot of the stuff that's really kind of in the white papers and the one pagers. So if they want to catch up, they can kind of get to there, and then I think it really kind of takes off.
Yeah, and listen, the great news is that means we had around 350 people who will leave this spaces knowing what an FNFT is. And it's very interesting because the fascinating thing about the NFT world, and I think we can all agree, is that although the NFTs that are created and are traded, and apes and digital board penguins and all these wonderful different things, it's the entree to a much greater use of the blockchain, and things like financial non-fungible tokens are the next step in developing the world that the NFTs represent, because this is the way the world is going to go, and it is a very significant step in blockchain, in non-fungible tokens. And if nothing else, Rob, what we've done is we've introduced the language of FNFTs to a brand new 350 people. And if for nothing else, I'm glad for that. 100%.
That is a fantastic victory in my book. It has been an absolute pleasure talking with y'all, and I'm so excited to continue working with you guys. This is you have a fantastic community, and you have a fantastic project. It's such a simple concept, yet as far as I'm aware, you're the only ones doing anything like it. So it's an absolute pleasure to be working with you.
Well, Yacht, I'll let you do the sign off, but on behalf of the DAO, and I say that with the most and you all can read into this how much you want. I say that with the most humble of for being willing to come in and talk to our community and answer all of these questions and educate all of us on some very complex development efforts as are being undertaken by Revest or Revest. And, I really am incredibly excited for this partnership, where it's going to go. And I see this as being just the nascent beginning to a partnership where both of these projects are going to change the world. And it's exciting that we have the opportunity to do that together. Yacht, I'm going to let you sign this off, brother.
We actually have one more question. If did we lose Rob?
I'm right here.
Okay, Joe, you got a question?
Sure. Hey, Rob, thanks for joining us. I just had a follow-up question. You were talking about your staking campaigns, and you were kind of glowing about it. And I was just kind of curious, what sets it apart from what's currently out there, and why? Yeah, basically, just expand on that a little bit.
So, our staking system is a fairly interesting creature. It basically functions in several different ways than a lot of the other ones. First of all, right now we're doing rewards in Revest tokens, but that's not the long-term goal. The long-term goal is to give rewards in Ethereum, because the long-term goal is to charge people a fee to use the Revest protocol. We've already got that working on some of the L2s that we're on, Phantom, Polygon, AVAX, and we're planning to bring that to Ethereum fairly soon as well. In the meantime, we've been paying people in Revest tokens. The truly unique thing, though, about the way that our staking system functions, it's not just, okay, we're paying people the revenue, others have done that, is that it's based on, first of all, FNTFs, and second of all, a very novel locking mechanic. What we identified as kind of some of the problems with staking, first of all, is, well, it's not liquid. You can't sell stake tokens. You can't do anything with stake tokens. But we literally put our money where our mouth was and made our staking system utilize FNTFs. So if you stake tokens in there, you can transfer the stake, you can sell the rights to the stake, you can do whatever you want with it on the secondary, and it doesn't affect the underlying tokens. It's a good thing. The second thing is that we looked at the game theory aspects of our staking and tried to come up with something that was a little bit different. One of the problems that we noticed is, okay, let's say you lock up your tokens for 12 months. That's actually the highest tier we have. Well, first of all, we want to reward you at a higher rate than somebody who is locking up for 1 month. So we've set up our staking system so that people who lock up 1,000 tokens will have, in effect, 14,000 tokens relative to someone who's only locked up their tokens for 1 month. So we are very deliberately rewarding people for taking those higher risks and locking tokens up for a longer period. That's the first thing. The second thing is we realized, okay, we can't have this system set up in a way that someone can just create call options. If the token's just unlocked after 12 months and stayed that way, well, you've just got a call option on Revest now. You can just go ahead, withdraw your stake anytime after those 12 months and sell it. So it produces some really poor incentive alignment when people can just take their stake out of the pot at any time after the first lockup period has concluded, turn around and sell it. That does not fit the incentive that we wanted to produce. So we engineered the system a little bit different. You can withdraw your rewards at any time. You can even actually compound them. It is a manual process. But when your stake unlocks, this is unique to each individual, when your stake unlocks, you have a certain window to withdraw it before it relocks. And this has proved, well, it's something of a dark pattern, actually, unintentionally. it's turned out to be very successful, both in that people actually like the staking system, and that in people who don't really do their research properly and just jump into investments blindly, don't read the instructions, and end up not realizing that they have to withdraw within a window. So that was not the intention, but it has produced outcomes that are positive for both people doing the staking, because it's a more portable staking solution, and for the team is using the product, because the staking is it doesn't offer people the ability to withdraw at any time. It's less liquid for the tokens, and if people haven't actually figured out what they're doing, then it does punish them. So we think it's a very good balance of incentives between the team and incentives with the community. Does that answer your question?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I just have one question. Can you buy Blox via the Humble Pay wallet?
So it has been announced that you will be able to buy Blox in the Humble app through the Humble Pay through the Humble wallet, using, I believe, credit and debit card. My understanding in speaking with that partner is the functionality of that will be pushed to production very, very soon and be listed on the App Store in the very near future. But without Humble on the call to comment on it, they are in the final processes of pushing to technical production release. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you for addressing that. I was on the call earlier, but then I jumped off, so I didn't know if that was addressed. But thank you for letting me know.
Absolutely. So, Yacht, are you? Are we ready to call it? So Yacht might be experiencing some technical difficulties.
No, I got the Zoom mute. I was sitting there talking, basically doing the whole see you later, guys, thanks for everything. I know it's hard not to say humble on every call, but Rob, honestly, thank you so much for this. I know it was a lot of people were looking forward to it, got a lot of information out of it, and I think that we did kind of bridge the gap as the call went on with technical to kind of more layman's terms. And I think the general gist of everything that you're doing is obviously very complex, and a lot of this stuff is building in that consumer layer that makes it a little simpler, and I feel like we got there. So I appreciate your time, Ghost, as always. It was a pleasure. And with that, I think that's it for this week. And next week we have another guest that's scheduled, so we'll make sure we put that out. But Rob, again, thank you. And next time we'll try to make sure we can use your microphone and camera.
Hey, I'm all for that. This has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you all so much for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Have a fantastic night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.